Welcome to video 2. So in the first video, we got to this point. We got to the point where we've created a function that will roll the dice twice, show us the results of the roll, and then say hit enter to continue before it rolls again. That's great. The only problem here is that we now want to create the opportunity for a turn to end. And there are several ways that the turn would end. The first way is if one of the two dice was a 1. The second way is if both of the dice were a 1. And the third way is if the user chooses not to roll the dice again, not to take a second turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it in this order, and there's a reason I'm going to start this way. Well, let me explain. So first we're going to see if they got 2 1s. Then we're going to see if they got 1 1, and then we're going to ask if they want to roll again. The reason we're going to do it in this order is that we want to ask them if they want to go again last, because if they roll a 1, they don't get a choice. We're going to do the if they rolled a pair of 1s first because of the type of if statement we have to use to check for this. So bear with me here. If we're going to say if die 1 is equal to 1 and die 2 is equal to 1. All right. So we're saying that because we want to first check to see if both dice are a 1, if he rolled a pair of 1s, if the player rolled a pair of 1s. So if they both are 1s, die 1 and die 2 are both 1s, then they rolled a pair. So what we need to do then is say print you rolled a pair of 1s. Print your turn is over. And then we're going to say, just to keep it consistent, I'm going to say hit enter to continue. All right, so next, we are going to change the roll to n. So here's what that does. So now if they roll a pair of 1s, roll changes to n. And when it comes back up here and checks to see if roll is y, it's not. And it's going to go to whatever the next line of our function is. And we don't have a next line of our function yet. So right now, the function would be over. So basically, with the program we've written right this second, person would roll and roll and roll until they roll a pair of 1s, and then their turn would be over and the game would end. So we got more to do. Now, the next thing we need to check for, well, actually, let me add something here. Now, so we're going to do this for a 1-player game, and then we're going to convert it to a 2-player game. All right, so, but we need to assign a temp score. Temp score is what's going to keep track, or actually we call it a turn score. Turn score is what keeps track of their turn in this game. And I'm going to call this a -1. It's not really a -1. They don't really lose 1 point. They're going to lose all their points. But we're going to use this -1 later on to tell our code to make their score a 0. So for now, just leave that turn score at -1. The next thing we need to check for in an elif statement, die 1 equals 1, or die 2 equals 1. So this is a very different statement than the last one. In this one, this if only runs if both numbers are 1s. This one will run if either one or the other is a 1. Here's why I do this one second, because if I did this one first, the or first, then even if they had a pair of 1s, it would run, and we would never get to the fact that they rolled a pair of 1s. So we need to check for a pair of 1s first, then we need to check for a single one, and we're going to say print you rolled a 1, print your turn is over. Oops, I used a single and a double. Gotta fix that. Remember to be consistent with that. Input. Be consistent. And roll gets set to n. And turn score equals 0. So now our program does this. Our program starts rolling the dice, and as soon as there's either a 1 or a 0 as soon as there's either 1 or 2 1s, the turn ends, and it will either tell them they rolled a pair of 1s, that their turn is over, or they rolled a 1 and their turn is over. It will set roll to n, so it won't roll another time, and it will, if they roll a pair of 1s, set turn score to -1, and if they roll just a single 1, set their turn score to 0, which is accurate. If they roll a 1, they get 0 for that turn. Again, -1 is not accurate. -1 is a flag for us that says we need to reset that player score altogether. So next, what we need to do is we need to write we need to put give them the option to roll again. We can put this in an else statement. We don't need another elif on this one. And basically, this is pretty simple too. If it's an else, we are going to say temp score equals temp score plus die 1 plus die 2. All right, so that's gonna, the first time I did this, I used temp score. So it's turn score and turn score. So if I say turn score equals turn score plus die 1 plus die 2, that means they rolled something other than a 1 in both die. All right, so I could print out what they scored here, but instead we're going to do this. Instead, we are going to say this. We're going to say if turn score is greater than 0, if turn score is greater than 0, so I'm trying to decide if we can put this. Actually, we don't need to do a separate if for that. We'll just do this. We're going to say print your score this turn. Your score for this turn so far is. And I'm going to use the comma. Oh, so I don't need that because that's going to make me is turn score. So now that's going to print out your score for this turn so far is, and it's going to show the total for the thing, and then it's going to say roll equals input. So now this time, instead of setting it to n, we're going to say, do you want to roll again? Y. I like to show them their choices. So their choices here are Y or N. Okay, now I'm going to show you another little trick here. So there are a lot of different things they could enter, and in truth, if they enter anything other than Y, it doesn't have to be N, but it makes more sense to the user, so I asked them to put in a Y or an N. But if they put in anything other than a Y, their roll is going to end. If they put in a space Y, or space Y, a Y space, their turn's going to end because that's not a Y. We could do what we call validating input, and we will later on validate input to make sure they don't put in something else. But there's one real simple thing we can do to input, and that is to convert it to lowercase. And we can convert the input to lowercase just by putting dot lower parentheses after the input. So even if they enter a capital Y or capital N, it's going to still take it as a lowercase y or a lowercase n. Not really entirely important, but helpful. So let's run the module. I rolled in a 5 and a 1. Hit enter to continue. Okay, so I need to restart my shell. Something weird happened there. So we're going to try running that from scratch. You rolled a 2 and a 4. Hit enter to continue. Your score this turn so far is 6. Do you want to roll again? Yes, I do. You rolled a 2 and a 3. Hit enter to continue. Your score this turn so far is 11. Do you want to roll again? Yes. You rolled a 5 and a 5. Hit enter to continue. Your score so far this turn is 21. Do you want to roll again? No, I don't want to roll again. And it's over. So this is what it does so far. And had I rolled a 1, it would have ended my turn. Matter of fact, let's run it one more time until I get 1. Hit enter to continue. Your score so far is a 9. Do you want to roll again? Yes. You rolled a 1 and a 6. Hit enter to continue. Your turn is over. Hit enter to continue. So now, hit enter to continue was helpful when I was first doing this, and we needed it to stop the roll over and over and over again. But now we have other stuff to stop the roll, so we don't really need this line anymore, because now we have another place where it'll stop either here, here, or here. So now it's not an endless loop anymore, and we don't need that, and we'll have one less place where it asks us to run, or to hit enter to continue. So you rolled a 5 and a 6. Your turn so far is 11. Do you want to roll again? Yes, I do. 3 and a 5. You want to roll again? Yes. You rolled a 1. Your turn is over. Hit enter to continue. All right. So now we actually have a dice game where it lets us roll over and over and over again until either we roll a 1 or we quit rolling. All right. So I'm going to end this video here, and next video we're going to start talking about keeping score.